The discovery of Noah's Ark sends shockwaves across the globe, challenging everything we thought we knew about science and history. As governments scramble to control the narrative, a hidden truth about humanity's past is about to be unleashed. Picture this. Tomorrow's headlines don't scream about politics, sports, or the latest gadget. Instead, every phone on the planet buzzes with the same push alert. Noah's Ark has been found. Not a meme, not a hoax, not another grainy, out-of-focus photo from 1952. We're talking a full, undeniable timber hull, stretching 400 feet long, petrified and wedged high on Mount Ararat, chilling out at 13,000 feet. Satellites pinged it, drones confirmed it, and within minutes, the world starts asking the only question that truly matters. What now? If the Ark showed up tomorrow, your Monday wouldn't be about coffee and spreadsheets. It would be the day textbooks turned to confetti, the day every scientist, every preacher, and every late-night comedian had to rewrite their entire script. Think about it. The very foundations of geology, archaeology, and even our understanding of human history would be shaken to their core. What would we do if a vessel, described in ancient texts as saving humanity from a global deluge, suddenly appeared undeniable and real? In the next few minutes, we're going to walk through the first 24 hours after the lid is lifted off the greatest archaeological bombshell ever. Who moves first? Who panics? And what secrets about humanity's past might just ride out of that mountain on live television? The imaging company that spotted the anomaly wasn't even looking for ancient boats. They were actually hunting avalanche zones for insurance clients, using advanced AI to map treacherous terrain. Their artificial intelligence flags a perfectly rectangular shadow, stark and unnatural, lying under a receding glacier. Analyst Haley Lopez, probably sipping her lukewarm coffee, zooms in, does a double take, and lets out a low whistle. "Boss," she says, her voice a little shaky, "you're not gonna believe this." Her boss, a grizzled veteran of 1,000 false alarms, calls the Turkish Ministry of Culture. The ministry, realizing the sheer magnitude of the claim, they call everyone. Within 60 minutes, a NATO recon jet is diverted from its routine patrol. A hazmat team is scrambled, just in case, And every cell carrier around Ararat mysteriously drops to 2 bars. Why the chokehold on signal? Because governments remember the 2020 drone footage of a submerged structure in the Black Sea. Social media absolutely melted, markets dipped, and nothing was even confirmed. If the Ark is real, the first rule of engagement is simple. Control the narrative before it controls you. The sheer, unadulterated chaos of unchecked information is a beast no government wants to unleash, especially when it involves something that could fundamentally alter global perspectives. The scramble isn't just about security. It's about managing an impending existential crisis. By dawn local time, a tight cordon has been established. Satellite uplinks are blocked in a 50-kilometer radius, creating a digital blackout around the site. International news outlets, their crews already mobilized with astonishing speed, camp out in the nearby town of Bayazıt. They're desperate for a scoop, but all they get is a terse official press release. Unprecedented wooden structure located. Scientific teams en route. Please respect no-fly zone translation. We're not ready for 400 million live streamers descending on a mountainside that's basically avalanche central. Nor are we prepared for the world to see what's inside without proper context and control. Meanwhile, in newsrooms across the globe, every major network quietly dusts off the same digital file labeled Flood Myths, B-roll. Why? Because every culture, From the ancient Sumerians to the Mayans, from indigenous African tribes to the Hindu traditions of India, is a deluge story. These aren't just quaint folk tales anymore. If the Ark truly surfaces, every one of those stories suddenly looks less like folklore and more like a witness statement, echoed across millennia, across continents. The collective memory of humanity, once dismissed as mere mythology, would demand a serious, profound reevaluation. Here's where uniformitarianism, the bedrock doctrine of modern geology that Earth's processes always crept along at today's lazy, predictable pace, gets body slammed. Geologists who swore the planet can't flood fast enough to cover Ararat now stare at a hull that shouldn't be up there. Their carefully constructed timelines based on slow, gradual erosion and deposition over millions of years suddenly look fragile. The idea that the present is the key to the past becomes a lot more complicated when the past throws a 400-foot wooden curveball at you. Carbon dating labs, working under intense pressure, receive splinters from the Ark. If those samples hit around 5,000 years old, give or take a few centuries, they sync eerily with the Masoretic timeline of Genesis, a chronology often dismissed by mainstream science. Peer-reviewed Twitter, that bastion of rapid-fire scientific critique, explodes. Contamination, hoax wood, it's a deliberate plant. But this time the sample isn't just checked once, it's cross-checked in Zurich, Tucson, and Tokyo. The results converge, echoing each other with chilling precision. The wood undeniably predates the Bronze Age collapse, a cataclysmic period around 1250 to 1150 BCE that saw the downfall of major civilizations. And here's the kicker. The pitch used to seal it contains resin from an extinct conifer, a species unknown in modern botany, suggesting a biosphere unlike anything we currently understand. Science is cornered. Either our dating methods are spectacularly off, or the last 200 years of geological and evolutionary theory need a profound, embarrassing rewrite. Guess which option researchers hate less? It's a crisis of epistemology, a deep-seated challenge to the very way we understand our world. For 2.3 billion Christians and 1.8 billion Muslims, the discovery feels like the sky ripping open. It's not just an affirmation, it's a seismic validation. Pastors who spent Sundays spiritualizing the flood as allegory or a metaphor for spiritual cleansing now race to buy up every copy of their own sermon that called it just that. The theological gymnastics required to reconcile a literal ark with previous allegorical interpretations would be immense. In Israel, ultra-Orthodox Jews hold spontaneous prayers at the Western Wall, their voices filled with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Because if the Torah's flood account is literal, what else is? What other ancient narratives, once relegated to myth, might hold literal truth? Meanwhile, atheist influencers, usually so quick with a debunking video, schedule emergency podcasts titled, "Okay, maybe we need a new game plan." Reddit's r/atheism briefly goes private. Not out of defeat, mind you, but sheer overload. When empirical evidence, solid and undeniable, lands squarely on the side of a 3,000-year-old scripture, memes just don't cut it anymore. The comfortable intellectual framework of secularism, built on the premise of a purely naturalistic universe, would suddenly feel a lot less comfortable. Turkey suddenly sitting on the most significant archaeological site in human history instantly classifies the Ark site as a Grade 1 heritage zone. This means no one, not even the most credentialed international expert, enters without a permit signed personally in Ankara. It's a move born of national pride, security, and an understanding of the immense geopolitical leverage this discovery brings. Russia, ever opportunistic and with a naval base just 3 hours south in Tartus, quickly offers technical assistance, a thinly veiled attempt to gain access and influence. Washington, not to be outmaneuvered, floats a UN heritage proposal aiming for international oversight, which of course means American influence. Beijing calls for a multinational scientific panel, stressing the importance of global cooperation, but with a keen eye on ensuring their own scientists are at the forefront. Why the sudden diplomatic scramble? Because if anyone remembers how the Dead Sea Scrolls took decades to reach public view, shrouded in academic controversy and exclusive access, it's the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Every player on the global stage knows this. Whoever physically controls the artifact controls the story. And this story isn't just worth gold. It's the deed to the ideological future, capable of reshaping alliances, challenging existing power structures, and defining humanity's place in the cosmos. Within one tumultuous trading day, the global markets are in absolute disarray. Gold, the ultimate safe haven, spikes a staggering 8% as investors flee uncertain assets. Crypto, once hailed as the future, dives a dizzying 11%. Its speculative nature, unable to withstand such a fundamental shift in reality. And then there's the peculiar case of a little-known ETF called Faith Shares, which inexplicably rebounds a mind-boggling 40%. Investors aren't reacting to the wood itself. They're reacting to the potential collapse of secular consumer confidence. If Noah was right about the flood, what else might he be right about? What does this mean for a society built on material consumption and short-term gains? Entire sectors, alcohol, gambling, adult entertainment, bleed market cap faster than you can say divine judgment, as a sudden collective moral introspection sweeps through the populace. Meanwhile, catastrophe insurance startups pop up like mushrooms after a rain, with names like Archaeological and 40-day coverage, promising to protect assets from unforeseen, perhaps biblical events. Brokers, bewildered but quick to adapt, dub it the Pascal rally. It's a blind panic hedge, a sudden, desperate calculation based on Pascal's wager. If there's even a remote chance of infinite gain, heaven, or infinite loss, hell, isn't it rational to act as if God exists? The unspoken fear is palpable. Maybe, just maybe, wrath is still on the table. Universities, those hallowed halls of critical thought, split into warring factions. The preservers and the revisionists. The preservers, clinging to established paradigms, argue the Ark is a local event, perhaps a regional flood, blown cosmic by centuries of oral tradition and cultural exaggeration. The revisionists, however, claim it's the smoking gun for catastrophism, proving that Earth's history is punctuated by sudden, violent global events, not just slow, gradual change. Tenure fights erupt in departmental meetings, spilling over into impassioned op-eds and viral online debates. One prominent Ivy League department chair resigns in disgrace after an email leaks to the press. We can't let one boat trash 2 centuries of Darwinian synthesis. The very framework of evolutionary biology, so central to modern understanding, is under direct assault. Students, ever eager for a cause, occupy administrative offices demanding epistemic justice for indigenous flood narratives. Their argument? If Western science can be proven so profoundly wrong on something this fundamental, then reparations for dismissed knowledge systems and marginalized voices are next on the agenda. Suddenly, campus bookstores can't keep titles by previously ridiculed authors like Graham Hancock and Immanuel Velikovsky, who champion alternative histories and catastrophic events on the shelves. The intellectual landscape is in upheaval and no discipline is safe. On day 3, advanced LIDAR technology, carefully maneuvered into position, finally penetrates the hull's inner chambers, sending back astonishing 3D images. The team, holding its collective breath, finds compartment walls arranged in precise ratios of 3 to 1 to 1, exactly matching the qubit descriptions found not only in the biblical Genesis account, but also in the Epic of Gilgamesh. This alone would be revolutionary. But then, the LIDAR reveals something else, something truly baffling. Ferrous rivets with a metallurgical fingerprint completely unknown to modern science. A composition that looks suspiciously like something out of a 2024 nanotech lab. Translation: either the dating is spectacularly wrong, or whoever built the Ark had access to an advanced alloying process that shouldn't exist for millennia. Conspiracy corners of the internet, naturally, begin to whisper excitedly about pre-flood civilization and lost technologies, suggesting a level of human ingenuity far beyond what mainstream archaeology has ever admitted. Mainstream media outlets, however, bury the rivet story on page 6, or couch it in layers of cautious skepticism. They learned a harsh lesson from the 2018 Göbekli Tepe revelations, which hinted at complex societal structures far earlier than previously thought. The public can only stomach one paradigm shift per week. This isn't just about ancient carpentry, it's about the very narrative of human technological progress. Across the globe, state boards of education immediately freeze history curricula. The old lessons, once sacrosanct, are now under intense scrutiny. In Texas, emergency hearings are convened. Do we still teach the Permian extinction as the greatest mass extinction event? Or do we slot in a 2,900 BCE global flood as the new, undeniable, epoch-defining catastrophe? In California, known for its progressive approaches, a dual-track model is proposed. Scientific model versus narrative model, allowing parents to choose which version of early human history their children will learn. TikTok teachers, usually masters of concise, engaging content, film tearful confessionals admitting they have absolutely no lesson plan for literal scripture suddenly becoming literal history. Their carefully curated educational personas crumble under the weight of this new reality. Meanwhile, enrollment in seminaries and theological colleges jumps a staggering 300% overnight. People are desperate for answers, for meaning, for guidance in a world suddenly turned upside down. One college freshman, articulate and overwhelmed, sums up the sentiment perfectly in a viral post. If the Ark is real, maybe the syllabus isn't just negotiable. Maybe everything we thought we knew is... Now that every government has grounded drones within a 30-kilometer exclusion zone around Ararat, amateur sleuths, ever resourceful, stitch together open-source satellite images from before the blackout. They spot cargo choppers, unmistakably military, ferrying large rectangular crates labeled simply S1 away from the site. Within hours, hashtag Ark cover-up trends globally. Influencers armed with shaky footage of black SUVs on remote mountain roads begin to live stream, claiming the crates don't contain wooden samples or archaeological tools, but something far more sensational: bodies. Specifically, they claim, Nephilim remains, the offspring of divine beings and human women, often described as giants in ancient texts. No verification, of course, but it doesn't matter. The mere possibility that elites might be hiding proof of giants, pre-flood technology, or divine DNA is enough to ignite Q-style forums and fuel a new wave of intense paranoia. The Ark isn't just wood anymore. It's a Rorschach test for every molecule of distrust floating in the digital bloodstream, a focal point for every existing conspiracy theory to coalesce around. The vessel of salvation becomes, for many, the ultimate symbol of governmental deceit. The ripple effect of this discovery isn't just global, it's deeply, profoundly personal. Meet Sarah, a brilliant geology postdoc who spent 6 years meticulously mapping slow-motion erosion patterns in ancient riverbeds. On the day the Ark hits the news, her fiancé texts her a single, cutting question. Still want to marry a girl who can't explain a boat on a mountaintop? Their wedding website, once a beacon of their shared future, goes dark that evening. Her entire career, her life's work, feels like it's dissolving. Or consider James, a charismatic megachurch pastor who built a 10,000-member empire on seeker-friendly metaphorical preaching, carefully avoiding any literal interpretations that might alienate his congregation. By Friday, haggard but resolute, he's behind the podium declaring, "I was wrong, and grace is bigger than my mistake." As he speaks, the donation counters on the screens behind him spin like slot machines, a mix of renewed faith and desperate hedging. Across the planet, marriages crumble, careers pivot, and identities once solid now hinge precariously on a single, ancient wooden vessel. The sheer weight of such a discovery forces an immediate, often painful reevaluation of personal truths and relationships. Smash that subscribe button if you want to see how the story unfolds when the first live feed from the glacier drops. And tell us in the comments, what's the one question you'd ask if you were standing inside that hull right now? After an agonizing 48 hours of global anticipation, Ankara finally opens the site to a tightly controlled pool camera. The world watches, collectively holding its breath as the live feed goes online. And there it is, the prow of the Ark, massive and imposing, jutting from the ice like the bow of a ghost ship, a silent testament to a forgotten age. As the camera zooms in, an astonishing detail becomes visible on the petrified wood, a multilingual plaque. It reads clearly, chillingly, "Noah, son of Lamech." But the letters aren't Hebrew or Phoenician, as some might expect. They're a proto-script that linguists last saw on a handful of enigmatic Danube tablets, an ancient writing system whose origins and full meaning remain largely a mystery. For believers, it's absolute vindication, a moment of profound spiritual triumph. For skeptics, it's an elaborate, impossibly perfect forgery, a conspiracy of unprecedented scale. For the rest of humanity, it's a mirror. In that moment, watching the live feed, humanity collectively realizes the question was never really, can the planet flood? But something far more existential. What floods inside us when the past turns out to be truer than we dared to imagine? The internal flood of doubt, belief, and self-reevaluation would be overwhelming. By weekend's end, the international community, reeling from the implications, acts with unprecedented speed. The UN Security Council passes Resolution 2847, placing the Ark under an immediate, comprehensive international research shield. This isn't just about protecting an artifact, it's about controlling access to a truth that could destabilize the world. Crucially, the resolution mandates that all raw data collected from the site, every scan, every image, every sample analysis, must be uploaded to an open, secure server within 72 hours. For the first time, every nation on Earth has equal download bandwidth, theoretically leveling the playing field of knowledge. Conspiracy chatter, of course, calls it sunlight laundering. a cynical attempt by the global powers to legitimize their control. But for one brief, miraculous weekend, the internet feels less like a cesspool of misinformation and more like the vast, collaborative library it was always meant to be. The resolution also quietly but firmly criminalizes the private sale of any artifact from the site. eBay, ever proactive, preemptively deletes 1,800 listings for authentic Ark splinters, free shipping, signaling the end of a very bizarre, very short-lived black market. Sunday night, as the world tries to process the deluge of new information, a neuroscientist in Stockholm posts an open letter to the global scientific community. It quickly goes viral, racking up 2 million likes within hours. Her words resonate with a profound, unsettling truth. We spent centuries demanding physical proof of transcendence. Now that we have it, why does it feel less like a revelation and more like we opened a door and found a mirror? Her point is stark. Evidence doesn't erase mystery. It merely relocates it. If the flood actually happened, if this vessel is real, then every rainbow isn't just an optical phenomenon. It truly was a promise, a divine covenant etched in the sky. And every storm, once a symbol of random chaos, now carries the potential for amnesty, for a fresh start. The Ark, once a simple boat in an ancient story, becomes less a wooden vessel and more a metaphysical credit card maxed out by human interpretation, forcing us to confront the deepest questions of purpose, morality, and our place in a universe that just got a whole lot more complex. On Monday, exactly 7 days after the initial discovery, stock markets surprisingly begin to re-stabilize. But there's a new, unsettling category added to volatility indexes: revelation risk. Travel sites list Mount Ararat hikes as temporarily booked until 2031, as pilgrims and adventurers alike clamor to witness the site. The Turkish lira strengthens a remarkable 4% against the dollar, and every airline immediately adds a new Mount Ararat approach, surcharge to flights in the region. Meanwhile, in secure, undisclosed labs, scientists quietly sequence DNA extracted from the pitch residue, from fossilized microbial mats, and from ancient pollen found within the Ark's timbers. Preliminary reports, leaked by a breathless intern, hint at genomes absent from any known pre-flood sediment layers, implying a biosphere reboot, a complete reset of life on Earth. If those sequences match modern human DNA, the entire timeline of evolution as we know it collapses, forcing a radical reevaluation of our origins. But if they don't match, if they reveal a lost, advanced biosphere, then we confront the even more staggering possibility of a forgotten, technologically sophisticated pre-human civilization. Either way, the decade ahead just got very, very expensive for certainty. If you made it this far, hit like. So the algorithm knows we're allowed to question everything together. Share this video with the friend who said history is boring. Because tomorrow, history might just punch back, harder than you ever imagined. Finding Noah's Ark tomorrow wouldn't just rewrite textbooks. It would rewire the operating system of doubt inside every one of us. Science would limp, struggling to reconcile its models. Religion would roar, finding profound validation and facing new, challenging questions. Markets would convulse, reacting to the very real psychological and philosophical tremors. And the quiet part, the unsettling, deeply human part, would finally be spoken aloud. Maybe we are the sequel, not the pilot episode. And if that's true, what else is buried under layers of ice, shifting sands, or simply our collective disbelief? Keep watching, keep asking, and remember, When the flood comes, it won't be water that drowns us, but the truths we refuse to float.